Left, right, liberal, conservative, these words dominate political discussion, but most people don't actually know what they mean. They just use them as emojis.
Yes!
Instead of actual ideologies. Today we're going to be dismantling the lazy binaries, defending liberalism from the smear campaign it's been a subject of.
Men are going to live in fear!
And showing you why being a liberal conservative isn't actually a contradiction. Classical liberalism was about individual liberty, private property, free markets, limited government. It was the ideology of Locke, Smith, Mill, thinkers who believed that the state should protect rights, not to redistribute wealth. But somewhere along the way, the word liberalism got hijacked by the United States. It means progressive social policy, state interventionism, collectivist economics. That's not liberalism. That's just social paternalism wrapped up in bureaucracy. And here's the kicker. Classical liberalism has just been abandoned by both the left, who view it as some sort of neoliberal greed, and some parts of the right. The populist right views it as weak or globalist, but that's actually a false dichotomy. You can defend free markets and also defend borders. You can believe in liberty and believe in tradition. The two are not mutually exclusive. So let me put my cards on the table. I'm a liberal conservative, just about. And what that means is that I defend and believe in free markets, in individual liberty and rights, in limited government, in private property. But I also believe in some socially conservative values, in tradition, in cultural cohesion and national identity. Liberal conservatism is about preserving the conditions required for liberty, the rule of law, stable institutions, and creating a culture that promotes responsibility rather than entitlement. But what label would you use in order to describe your own political affiliation, and how closely does it actually align with your beliefs? Make sure to let us know down in the comment section below, and also to like, share, and subscribe this episode so that more people can challenge the idea of the usage of political labels. The left-right spectrum is so broken. It was born in 1789, based literally on where people sat on the French Assembly. That's how outdated it is. But what do those labels even mean anymore? Is a nationalist who supports free markets on the right, or just a centrist? Is a conservative who backs welfare for families, left-wing or populist? Is a libertarian who wants open borders and legal weed even on the spectrum? The thing is, the right is having a kind of identity crisis at the moment, and it's at crossroads. One road leads to economic nationalism. You have tariffs, state-led protectionism, industrial policy. The other road leads to market liberalism. You have deregulation, entrepreneurship, decentralization. But here's the thing, the two aren't mutually exclusive. You can defend national identity while unleashing market forces. You can reject, I really don't like this word, but woke corporations while championing small businesses. You can oppose supranational bureaucracies while embracing trade and innovation. So why do we still cling on to these old labels? Because they seem to be really easy, but they actually obscure the real debates. Should the state be a referee or a player? Should markets actually impose national interests rather than individual choices? Should liberty be absolute or bounded by tradition? These are the questions that we should be asking, not whether somebody is left or right. The truth is, most people hold hybrid views. The spectrum doesn't reflect reality. What it does reflect is some sort of branding, and that branding is collapsing. Now, I'm going to be doing the political compass quiz live on camera as promised, and we're going to be seeing exactly what I get and whether it is actually similar to what I truly believe in. If you want to do it along with me, feel free, the link is in the description below. Thank you so much to all of you who have already sent in your results. We have a truly mixed bunch, and I'm so happy that so many people of different political persuasions listen to me. That really does make me happy that I'm reaching so many people. Make sure to subscribe and to join our community so that we can truly challenge the conventional ideas that are in the mainstream, so that we can build a truly global community that listens, debates, and defends the freedom to speak. So essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading through each of the questions and kind of going through my thought process with each of them. So the first question is, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations, otherwise known as TNCs. So the thing with serving humanity is that it's such a vague term, and it's quite impossible to be able to make everybody happy. There's always going to be people who are upset. But with serving the interests of transnational corporations, with globalization, what happens is that you have so many firms all over the world trying to create the same products but with better quality and at a cheaper price, which is essentially serving humanity. Always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. No, I wouldn't support my country if it was wrong, because the country is run by the government, the state, and the state can make mistakes. You don't necessarily have to blindly support a leader or a government or a party, because they can make mistakes, and you should be able to voice that concern, and you should be able to say, no, I don't support these actions. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. No, I would disagree with that, because even though you don't necessarily choose where you're born, your upbringing is influenced by it. So the culture, your values, everything that you're kind of raised with is because of the country that you are born in, and you should be proud of that upbringing that you're getting. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, this is a very common phrase used in kind of diplomacy, geopolitics, and yeah, I mean, I would agree. You can see it all the time when you see states interacting with each other. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Well, yeah, if you saw my episode 2, my previous episode, then you would know that I talked about international law not being real law necessarily, and how there's so many gaps and states disagree on so many things. International law doesn't have to be the benchmark by which military action is justified. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Well, no, I would strongly disagree with that. And that's because I'm doing that right now. You know, I'm informing and I'm trying to entertain. And I think that that's what a lot of people are doing. And it's actually a really good thing, because of the fact that information is now entertaining and people can access information and the news and history in a more accessible, digestible way. Now it's moving on to economics. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Now, I don't want to sound like a total socialist here. I don't want to sound like a socialist at all.
Yeah.
But I would say that because of the fact that there is, certainly in certain countries, I don't know if I'm just saying this as a Brit, a lot of countries don't get along, a lot of nationalities don't get along, but people have more of an opportunity to be able to hear about people of different nationalities and see them, whereas with class it's all very opaque and you don't really get to live the life of another class, of somebody, you know, you don't really get to live the life of the royal family, for instance. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Yeah, I would strongly agree with that, because of the fact that both inflation and unemployment are regressive. So what regressive means is that it impacts the poor the most. But the thing with unemployment is, even though this might sound really bad, but if more people have jobs, that means that more people are spending money in the economy because they can afford it. But the problem with spending too much in the economy is that firms will increase their prices because there's so much demand. And that's essentially what inflation is. So by having too many people employed, you're actually going to increase inflation, which is going to harm the people who you are trying to protect by giving them a job in the first place. And so by controlling inflation, you're actually helping the poorest people the most. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Okay, so I think that a lot of people would just automatically kind of strongly agree with this, because of the fact that you have this image of corporations wanting to exploit the environment, constantly make profit. What I think is that corporations will automatically kind of look around and think, hang on a second, if I continue to exploit the environment, I won't be able to make profit because number one, people are more green aware and people will most likely not keep on buying from them. And number two, well, I won't really be able to produce any longer if there isn't an environment left for me to produce. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Okay, I'm going to say agree on this one because I do think that it is sometimes necessary. So essentially it is a tit for tat kind of situation. You want to de-escalate it as much as possible, but we're also seeing that protectionism can be used as a kind of bargaining tool, and if it's used in that way, then potentially it isn't that bad. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I'm going to agree, not strongly agree, because you should also be able to innovate and invest in things that might not necessarily give you a profit in the short term, but maybe in the long term. Think about technology, think about AI. At the beginning, these things weren't profitable, but the more investment you put into it, the more profit you get in the long term. The rich are too highly taxed. I'm going to agree with this. In the UK, the top 1% of earners pay 30% of income tax. So we hear a lot of the time, oh, the rich aren't taxed enough, we should have a wealth tax. But the fact that the top 1% are paying 30% of income tax is already astronomical. So the next thing is about personal social values. The question is, abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. I'm not going to be looking too much into the semantics of the question, but I do just think that it's just a general question on abortion. I put agree, but if you do want to know more about my views on this topic, then you can leave a question in the comment section below. I'm not going to go too much into it because I kind of don't want to bore you guys. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. School is really important. Education is really important. I'm going to say strongly agree. Wait, no. Schools should not make. Strongly disagree. Wait, schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Yeah, disagree. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offence. It's already illegal. Things that are already illegal should not be legalized. As in, that's with a huge caveat, but I do think in terms of drugs that should be the case. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Strongly agree. The whole point of educating is to be able to be employable. Obviously, there are some things that you want to learn for fun. A load of social skills go into jobs, so it's not just going to be, I'm going to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. There are no savage and civilized people, there are only different cultures. I'm going to disagree with that because I do think that as time goes by, we can look back in history and say certain things were uncivilized. Cannibalism is savage. Yes, it may be different cultures, but we can just say that that's morally bad. They may not think so, but
oh well.
Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Yes, I'm going to strongly agree with that, because if you're able to work and you refuse the opportunity, what else do you want? First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I'm going to disagree with this because of the fact that it depends what country. In some cases, yeah, they can't be fully integrated, but it's not never. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Strongly agree. The BBC should not be getting public funding. So this section is about how I see wider society. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. Yeah, because Online Safety Act. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I mean, that is an advantage. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly agree. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. I'm gonna agree, because you know that banana that was just taped on the wall? I just can't see the art. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I'm gonna disagree because I'm not going to be able to judge every single family situation. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science that growth is detrimental to our efforts to curb global warming. I'm going to strongly disagree with that because of the fact that economic growth can actually help with global warming, because economic growth comes as a consequence of innovation, and if people are innovating to try to find solutions to climate change, then that should be encouraged. Okay, so the next thing is religion. Astrology accurately explains many things. I'm going to say agree because, yeah, I mean, it actually does. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I'm going to agree with that because social security is essentially you're forcibly taking money from other people and handing it to other people, but charity is a voluntary exchange, and that is so much better. It's so much purer. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. I don't think it's necessarily the role of school to instill religious values. If that's what you want, then there should be religious schools out there. Okay, so I have got my results. You can see it if you're watching up here. So my economic left-right, so I'm on the right, so that's 4.25, and I'm socially ever so slightly 1.23 authoritarian. I usually get anywhere between the blue and the purple, so sometimes I'm a bit more libertarian, sometimes I'm a bit more authoritarian, but I'm always on the right, always kind of in the middle of the right, so centre right. I do think that I am a bit more libertarian, and some of the questions that they were asking were very specific. But yeah, I mean, let me know, what did you get? Let us know in the comments section down below. Make sure to like, share and subscribe to this episode if you found it interesting, and to share your results with all of us and to join the community. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!